Good evening, everybody. This is welcome to Live with Breathe America. My name is Patrick Wickard. I'll be your host tonight. Tonight we have a special show for you. As you guys are all well aware, we are in Portland right now. We've had an interesting day today. A lot has gone on. We've seen a lot, and it's honestly, guys, it's a lot to take in. Because whenever you come to these events and whenever you get the opportunity to see these events, it's amazing how unexpected things are, right? And it's amazing how, sometimes, hello Mimi, hello DL. It's amazing how you really don't expect the things that you see. I mean, you come in this thing not knowing what to expect, and you really don't have any idea, but at the same time, you kind of think you have an idea, but those ideas are often shattered. And that was kind of what the experience we had today. So tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. We've never done this before. I have a very, very special guest with us tonight who's agreed to come on and talk with you guys and share some things with you from her perspective. And this is somebody I just met her today. And I'm going to tell you, I have a ton of respect for her. She is one of the bravest people I have ever seen in my entire life. Her name is Bethany. She's a freelance journalist, and she has her own business, Lion Shed Journalism LLC, and a bunch of other stuff. But she goes by, Top Quality Dumpster Fire. And as soon as I saw that, I loved it. It was hilarious. So Top Quality Dumpster Fire, and Bethany is her name. She is joining us to talk about her experience. Welcome to the show, Bethany. How are you doing tonight?
Hi, it's good to be here. I'm great. How are you? Well, as good as we can be, right?
Hey, you know what, Bethany? We are both sitting in hotels right now, and we are both alive and doing well. And so most of the people watching have absolutely no idea what has happened today, what went on. Obviously, we both have stories to tell, which is awfully interesting because they're very similar, but yet very different, but yet very similar. So let's start with you. Why are you here in Portland, Bethany?
Awesome. So I am a freelance journalist. I own my own business, and I work with a few organizations. And I came up to Portland originally, of course, to cover the Proud Boy rally and then the nightly rallies that have been happening for over 100 days in Portland. I have been up to Portland a few times now and then, especially during the rallies. I have captured violence. I have captured a ton of things. And of course, this has been going on for over 100 days. And of course, today was particularly special because it was supposed to be what was going to look like a civil war. I know that Kate Brown declared it a state of emergency. President Trump declared Portland anarchist jurisdiction. It looked like it was really going to throw down today. And so that's why I showed up to come report about it.
What's funny about that is that's the exact same reason we're here. We came up for the Proud Boy rally. We wanted to be here, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to stream it so that everybody in Breathe America would be able to see it and know what was happening. And we like to seek out the truth no matter the side, right? That's what we're looking for. You're getting a lot. I don't know if you can see the comments. I don't know if you're on your phone or on a laptop, but there's a bunch of comments coming through right now. People are saying hello, welcome to the family. You're already family, Bethany, so welcome.
Look at me.
Look at you growing a family. So I think we should just jump right into it. And I'm going to explain something real quick to everybody. So earlier in one of my lives, we were watching a speech that was going on, and I said that it sounds like Antifa's here, right? And I lifted my phone up, turned the angle of my phone to show everybody what was going on. And I've gone back and looked through the footage, and unfortunately it didn't come through very clear. Let me explain to you what I saw. I saw Bethany. I obviously didn't know her at that point in time. She's there by herself, running through the crowd. And as she crossed in front of us, I got just a glimpse of her. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. Came here by herself. And I didn't really pay much more attention to it. And I went back to the speech because that's what we were there watching, right? So Bethany, tell me what happened after that moment and what led up to that. And as an independent journalist, though, also I'd like to hear you touch on what it's like to be identified as something that you're obviously not.
Yeah, so I showed up, and I typically work alone, more for safety reasons of my protection. But I do like to meet other journalists out in the field, and I do have journalists that I shoot with. Um, at the time, though, I couldn't find anyone that I knew or anything like that, so I was totally alone. Um, so I came in, and there was an altercation already. It looks like two Proud Boys that were arguing, and I got some shots of that. And then once the speeches started, I started to, kind of look at this huge crowd of Proud Boys, and I kind of watched what the other press were doing. And they entered the crowd. And so I thought, okay, I'll enter as well. And so everything was peaceful at first. I'm snapping my pictures. I got some really amazing footage of just some great shots. But then, the sirens go off, the big flag rises from the stage, and the smoke comes out. And I'm near the stage at that point. And I am, taking pictures, da da da. The music's blaring. And once that ends, and, there's no more, big flare, I kind of just turn around. And I think, hey, I'm just going to go get some more shots of people. Because that's kind of where my interest is seeing who's here, seeing what their reactions are. What are they wearing? Why do they believe what they believe? So I started to walk back in the crowd and just minding my own business. For anyone, obviously you can't see me. I am small. I am so small, just as a human being. I'm 5'2" on a good day. So that's just a little descriptor. So I'm just minding my own business, walking through the crowd, and these two women who I ended up getting footage of, just yell at me, and they're like, "She's fake press," and I was very confused. I didn't think they were yelling at me, and I turn around and I'm like, "What? Sorry, I what do you mean?" And they're like, "She's fake press. She's fake press," and I'm like, no, no, I'm not. And I have press written on my helmet, press written on my shirt, my press badge. I'm basically decorated in it. And, they say, well, who are you with? And I say, well, I'm a part of the NPPA, which is the National Photographers Press Association, and then the IWWFJU, which is a independent journalist union that protects me as a journalist. And they basically hear the word union and yell socialist. And I was quite confused at that point. I was like, who's the socialist? Like, who are you yelling at? And they start screaming at the top of their lungs, Antifa press, Antifa press. And I'm still quite confused. I'm like, I don't see an Antifa press here. And I didn't realize that second that they were talking about me. I got a quick shot of the two women, and in the corner of my shot is actually a hand reaching in, because at that moment, a very large Proud Boy, who's of course way taller than I am, grabbed my helmet and ripped me to the ground. I hit the ground pretty hard, still kind of confused on what was happening, and looked up, and he grabbed me, and on the top of my helmet, I have a GoPro. And he tries to rip the GoPro off my head, which is of course bolted on, so he's ripping my head upwards. And I was able to kind of like yell, "What are you doing?" and grabs my GoPro, which was still luckily on, but kind of tries to get away. At that point, while them still screaming Antifa press, all the Proud Boys in that section were looking at me and started to come at me after already being attacked. And one of them tried to rip my camera out of my hands, which I quickly stuffed in my jacket, and they just started grabbing me. So I made a bolt for it. And that's kind of where you saw me, is I just ran out of the crowd as fast as I could, realizing what had just happened, and ended up getting to the perimeter of the area away from people, even though they're still chasing me. To the credit, the people on the stage did say, "Hey, leave her alone." But of course, that didn't go quite as planned. And then I did some interviews, got some, different footage out of it, but was a little surprised about what happened.
Yeah, and I want to. I've been to several of these events, and I got to say there was probably more press here than I've ever seen at any event ever. And what's interesting is all of the press is dressed in pretty much the same gear. There's more people there in helmets, and it's not like you were dressed in a way that made you look different than anyone else that was there. And so it was, quite interesting. So like I got to see a flash of her running by you guys, and without even thinking about it, the crowd's yelling Antifa's here, or Antifa press. I don't think I even made out the press part. I think I just made out the Antifa part. And I looked over and I see what I see, and it's just a bunch of people moving around. I couldn't really make anything out. And then I see this person running through the crowd. And I got a better look at her when she kind of got clear towards the end, and then later we'd gone offline and we'd come back, and I had been coming back, and it was when John and Aaron had headed back to the car for some stuff. I decided to stick around, and that's when I saw Bethany standing off by herself, and I went over and introduced myself. And it was actually pretty funny because she was pretty intimidated. And tell them why you were intimidated, Bethany, please, because I think this is funny.
With all due respect, you totally look like a Proud Boy. And after my quick altercation, in that crowd, I didn't really want to deal with anymore at the moment.
So here's what's really funny about this. For whatever reason, the assumption was made that Bethany was Antifa, right? And at the same time, I look like a Proud Boy, apparently. Is it the beard? Is it, blue jeans, boots? I don't know. Like
a little bit of the polo look.
Yeah,
you fit in.
Is it the hat? Apparently, the hat matters. Just so you know, we'll get to that a little later in the story. Anyways, Bethany and I got the opportunity to talk. She was hoping that I had footage of it, and I said I got some. I don't know how much of it's there, and we exchanged information and we exchanged numbers. And then I reached out to her a little bit later to see where she was at and if anything else was going on, because we wanted to go down to the BLM protest at Peninsula Park. And so we were actually pretty close to that. I called her. She was there, and she was getting ready to leave, but I was like, we were really close. I was only a few minutes away. So I was like, I was thinking I'd run into her. So this is where the other half of the day goes, where we weren't able to go live and share it with you guys. So we get to Peninsula Park. There's I don't know, probably I would guess maybe about 50 people standing on the corner protesting, and then probably about another 100 to 150 people scattered throughout the park. Would you say that's about right, about that timeline?
Yeah, reports are coming out now that there was about 1.5 thousand. Like, there was just a ton of BLM protesters, way outnumbering the Proud Boys.
Earlier in the day,
earlier in the day with aerial footage. At that point, maybe 200. There was just kind of some music. There was a llama. Things were pretty chill.
Had to bring up the llama, didn't you?
I had to.
So me and John and Aaron, we get to the Peninsula Park. We get out of the car. I pull my mask up over my face. I've got my hat on, and we head into the park. I'm keeping an eye out for Bethany because I was going to hook up with her while we were there and talk about what's coming up later tonight and everything else. We're not in the park maybe a minute and a half, and John and Aaron and myself were surrounded by probably 20 members. They were very aggressive, and they didn't have good intentions, I can tell you that. And I don't want to get into a whole lot of what was said, and I don't want to get into a whole lot of the assumptions that were made. Obviously, they didn't think that, they had a problem with my hat, and they had a problem with the way that I looked, because apparently I look like a Proud Boy. I don't know. It was a pretty tense situation there for a minute, and it was escalating very, very quickly. And luckily, luckily we were able to diffuse the situation, break it down, and have some really intelligent conversation and share with them who and what we are, why we're there. And but here's the thing, guys, in that moment, they weren't interested in talking at all. Just like in that moment for Bethany here, nobody was interested in talking to her. The accusation had been made, the assumption had been made. Yeah, Mimi, it wasn't so much that they were trying to start a fight, but they were looking for one. And it took a lot to diffuse the situation. And but that's okay, right? Because we were able to do, it's not where we start, guys, it's where we end up, right? And so after we ended up being at Pennsylvania Park for almost an hour, literally just talking to that same group of people that came up on us like that in the very beginning. And by the end of it, we're all shaking hands, we're all friends, we're all good. But that's how quickly these things can happen, all based on assumptions. So the reason I'm sharing this with you guys isn't to, say that these people are dangerous or violent or this or that. That's not the point I want to make. And maybe for some that's the case. And you know what? Maybe Bethany feels the same way about some at the Proud Boys event, especially considering her circumstances. But here we are, two people that show up at places to gather information, and in both situations are treated very, very wrongly based on simply the assumption of what we look like. How does that make you feel, Bethany?
A little, a little sorrowful, because, especially when it comes to these protests, and when it just human nature in these situations is the dehumanizing effect that it has on people. You want to put a name to things, and the buzzword for the BLM protesters is Antifa. And, the buzzwords for anyone on the right is Proud Boys. So you really don't have individuals. Like I said, when I saw you, I was a little weary,
Right.
at first, because I didn't want to deal with it. But when we just look at each other, no matter what side you are, as enemies or as a threat or as something that needs to be watched or contained, you're not seeing the individual people. You're not seeing the intentions. You're not seeing anything. You're just seeing a mascot or a phrase or a buzzword. And that's what we've been seeing even across the nation.
One of the things I bring up a lot is labels and this idea of humanizing each other, right? One of the problems I see in our country as a whole right now is the fact that overall, the biggest problem is that we look at the left as the left. We look at the right as the right. We don't see humans anymore. Everybody is just dehumanized. And that's one of the things that we strive to do differently, is to humanize everybody in these situations, and get people to actually communicate. So, like, literally for me, what I walked into at Pennsylvania Park, or that Pennsylvania or Peninsula Park, sorry, was literally what I do every single day in Breathe America. Walked into a situation where we are literally outnumbered. We have very aggressive people trying to make a point, and I'm trying to calm a situation down. I got John Lee over here. He was fired up. I've got Aaron, who was fired up. And we are literally surrounded and being threatened. I mean, it make no questions about it. It was a very threatening situation for me and for the people that I was with, just like it was a very threatening situation for Bethany when she is literally grabbed and thrown to the ground. Like, these two situations mirror each other so when I actually talked to Bethany afterwards, because we had talked before and we were like, she was telling me about an article she's writing that's actually like amazing. It's something that we've been talking about in the back end here. And so I was already thinking of doing a show with her. And then I ended up talking to her after Peninsula Park. I told her what happened after we got out of there. And we both are just kind of like, wow, how does that happen to both of us? So we figured we had to do a show and come on and talk about it. So we also want to talk a little bit more about, or wait, hold on, before we jump subjects. Anything you want to add to that, Bethany?
Yeah, just kind of, we both put ourselves in risks. I've uh within the last 6 months, I've been tear gassed. There's been pepper spray. I had a journalist buddy that had his arm cut open from a flashbang shrapnel that exploded right on him. I've seen and filmed people be tackled and abused. I've been shot at a few times with rubber bullets and stuff, and I've had snipers and been in their eyesights. When they're looking down from buildings, and with different protests, not just in Portland, but it's a risk that you put yourself in to try to do the right thing. My opinion about any of that is irrelevant, I believe, as a journalist. I can put that in an editorial, but my job is to do the best I can to document what's happening, whatever that is. And I can see that, obviously that's something that you try as well. And that's a risk with both of our careers heading into this, is that's common. I was a little surprised about the Proud Boys today. That's usually not how I get hurt, but definitely, unsurprised that it happened to both of us.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, I did not walk in there expecting that at all. In fact, we got there and everybody, and Aaron was excited to see there because he hasn't been out to one of these yet. I mean, we were coming in thinking it was going to be, just a bunch of people hanging out. We're going to talk to them, and no, it escalated really, really quickly just simply because of the way I looked, which is interesting. And it was funny because as soon as it was happening, I couldn't help but hear your voice in the back of my head saying, "Well, you do look like a Proud Boy." So,
well, I was wearing black, so I guess I look like Antifa, right?
I guess that's all that it takes. So I want to get into this subject that you're writing about, that we talked about earlier in the park, and I know you're doing an article on it, and I would love for. I'm definitely going to be waiting to read your perspective on it. And what would you like to share about it here?
Yeah, sure. Which one are we talking about? More of why we should work together, or more why some movements are failing?
Let's go with why we should work together. That's the Breathe
Gotcha.
America way.
Yeah. So I've definitely been looking into these situations, and I like to say that I am unaffiliated. I can agree with things from both sides, and I try to keep it that way to try to do my best journalism. If I start leaning one way or the other, I think I'm failing to a certain extent. And of course, that's inevitable. So I try my best to stay in the middle as much as I can. With that, we're seeing these Proud Boys and these Antifa, which of course is just labels, and that's not all of them at all. But we're seeing these forces, these sides from.
Okay. Well, I hate to interrupt you, Bethany, but I have to put this up there. I don't know that you can see the comments, but I know you can see this one. DL, I'm not wearing purple hair, pink extensions, and high heels. Not happening, bro. Sorry, not doing it. Crazy. Sorry, I had to address that one.
You're fine. I just said, hey, throw on a beanie, right?
Yeah, right.
I think 1776 means independence, but hey, who knows? I don't know history that well. I know, whatever.
Right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a history buff. I totally am.
Apparently, apparently somebody, sequestered all the patriot stuff. So you can't just be a patriot without being affiliated with something, right?
Hey, you see that "Don't Tread on Me" flag, and next thing you know, you're a racist. That's what we're starting to see.
It is.
Well, that's what people assume. Yeah.
There is a group that does definitely assume that. It is rather interesting to see the reactions. I mean, one of the biggest things that they pointed out was my hat. My hat was what started all the attention on me. Was simply the hat that I wore. And to be clear, it was this hat. This is all that it says on it. That's all that's on there. 76 and 13 stars, guys. That's all that's on my hat.
Yeah,
represents
and
the 13 colonies and the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which I think is a pretty awesome point in history.
maybe I hear it's popular.
Apparently now it makes me a proud boy, and a whole bunch of other things that I was called today that I didn't expect.
Yeah, I'll tell them what I was wearing. I was wearing my Doc Martens to protect my feet. When I'm in these situations, I need something to run with. I need something that's protective.
Sure.
I was wearing black leggings. I was wearing a black t-shirt that said press, like in big letters. I was wearing my corduroy jacket with a Pendleton wool patch on the back, and I was wearing a black hiking. Sorry, not black. A light blue hiking backpack with Smokey the Bear and mountains on it.
Hey, don't forget that. Don't forget that press helmet you were wearing too.
Yeah.
With a GoPro attached to the top.
Yeah, so I have a black press helmet with press written on the front in big letters and in the back in big letters in case, I have to run. And then a GoPro on top. I carry my street camera along with my phone. So I have 3 ways of documenting.
So yeah, that's the got Antifa written all over it. But to be fair, when I showed up at the Antifa BLM, whatever you want to call it, thing at Peninsula Park, there was a pretty common dress theme there. Everybody was wearing black.
Yep.
So I got to see a lot of signs and a lot of waving of flags that I didn't know what they were until John told me. John's pretty good with stuff like that. So but yeah, I don't know, guys, this is the sad part, right? We talk about this all the time, that the right and the left are not as far apart as they think they are. That the right and the left, if they would realize that they're not each other's enemy, they're actually fighting for the same thing. One of the best descriptions I've ever seen about the two different groups is from John Lee, talking about how the left wants change on a local level and the right wants change on a national level, but they're both fighting local government, national government. And you, Bethany, I don't want to guess your age, but I'm just going to tell you guys, Bethany is pretty young. And she's very, very intimidating at like just over 5 feet tall and maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. I mean, she's scary. I'm telling you.
That's about what I look like. Yeah.
But she's also like, she started bringing up some things in history that I know are before her time, talking about things that the right were really adamant about, like Ruby Ridge and Waco and some of the infringements on constitutional rights that we've seen in some of those situations, and how the left and the right are both fighting for the same damn thing. They just don't realize it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's actually kind of the article I'm in the process of writing right now, is the realization that I had where the Proud Boys should be protecting Antifa. We see these situations where, when Ruby Ridge happened and the federal government came in and there was a siege and, they murdered his son and his wife and the family dog. And then you have the friend that was in the hospital, and you have like this horrible siege and infringement of rights. Regardless, you see this overuse of federal power at that level. You have to be made an example of. We can't just let you get away with that. So then you have this devastation and all of a sudden the spark on the right. And then Waco happens very soon after. And you see another situation of overuse of force and the federal government stepping in that resulted in, I believe, half, if not over half, of the deaths being children. And you see these situations and you see these things where, especially right, we're pained and angered, and everyone should be about those situations. And they just want the government to leave them alone. And that's what I'm seeing from the left as well when I'm out there interviewing and when I'm at these protests, is both sides just want the federal government to just stop killing people. Whether it's sieges on, groups in the mountains of Idaho, or whether it's, downtown Portland or Georgia or wherever the next shooting is going to be, and kind of the argument that both sides should be representing the First Amendment right. Both sides should be protecting each other, even if they don't agree, even if they don't have the same opinion, but protecting the constitutional right to do so. The right should be backing these protesters, should be backing them, even if what they do is not what they agree with, because it is patriotic, because it is the First Amendment, because it is their right as Americans. And the left should do the same for the right. We should not have these clashes of battles. We should not see what we saw today, you and I. We should not see across the country what we're seeing. There should not be the oncoming civil war that everyone's predicting, because we need both sides to compromise together because we're fighting for the same cause.
It's interesting. We are Americans first and foremost. And if we allow ourselves to be separated into groups like this, then we literally are falling for the oldest trick in the book, the whole divide and conquer strategy to taking over anything. And that is literally what we're seeing play out in front of us. Now, I will be the first to admit that there are some people that want the fight. They do.
Yeah.
Some of the men that walked up to us today, they absolutely wanted a fight. And as the situation started to calm, those men immediately left. They're like, oh, we're not going to get what we want here out of these ones. So, but people that were interested in continuing the conversation stayed. And overall, we have to find a way to, Toby, that's exactly it. We have to find a way to remember this right here. We, the people. It's really simple. But we have to remember this. We, the people. And you know what? It doesn't matter who you voted for last election. Doesn't matter who you're voting for this election. What matters is you're an American first and foremost. And that should be enough for us to sit down and respect each other and at least be able to have these conversations for those of us that are willing. If you're not willing to have the conversation and you just want violence and destruction and chaos and those kind of things, well, you're really just part of the problem, not the solution.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And, I mentioned to you earlier when we were talking that I've been at a few rallies where, I'm standing in the middle of the street that's dividing two groups. And so you have, alleged Proud Boys on one side and alleged BLM supporters on the other side, and they're just screaming at each other and just at everything. And they just scream and scream and scream. And no one's listening. No one's taking the moment. And I remember something that I found out that day is two groups of maybe like two people met in the middle. And both sides didn't want them to. And they just kind of walked off. And I ended up following up with them. And they just said, we just talked. And we found out that we're on the same side. And why did we keep screaming? It's so easy to keep being angry. It's so easy to make tribes and pick sides and criminalize the people that you don't agree with. But when we can all just take a moment and sit down, we realize that the tragedies that have brought us both such anger and sadness, whatever side you're on, can also bring us relief and community when done right.
Bethany, you are literally a breath of fresh air for somebody as young in years as you are. That was amazing. You have a very, very unique perspective on it. And I got to tell you, I hope that all of you guys that are watching are hearing this. This is exactly what we need. This is exactly what we're working towards. What are you saying, Chris? But no, this is, yes, Claudia, I think you're right about that. However we get to this point that we're talking about, I don't know how we get there. I just know that we do it one step at a time. We do it one conversation at a time, and we start being willing to listen to each other. That is is an amazing place to start. Um, this is I mean, you have chosen a very, very difficult profession, and to stay neutral is difficult, and to go and see both sides is difficult. I mean, sometimes you're faced with opposition that you didn't even know you were going to be faced with. We both saw that today. um, but you know what, I don't know if I don't know, I have this feeling that, like, our paths crossing was a good thing, and I am really, really glad that I got the opportunity to meet you today. um, I did not expect you to be the surprise of the trip, but you absolutely are. Now, that other article that you're talking about, let's dig into that a little bit. I think these guys would love to hear it.
Yeah, about kind of why these things tend to be failing at the moment.
Yeah, why the movements are failing.
Sure. So as someone that spent quite a bit of time in Portland and in different rallies in different situations, it's been quite over 100 days in Portland of protesting. And some nights have been real riots, and but some things have definitely been thrown, and some nights have been fake riots, and only, plastic water balls have been thrown. I can tell you honestly that both have happened. Um, but the movement that we're seeing across the country is failing to an extent. And the reason why is public opinion is quickly shifting, especially after Kenosha,
Yeah,
especially after what happened in Portland when that man from the right, I'm forgetting his name right now, but he
yeah,
passed away. Yeah, he got murdered. You know, there's escalations here. Even a month ago there was no current deaths at protests. Now things are different, and I know that's the one thing I was worried about tonight, and still am, seeing as how the protests will be continuing on throughout the night, which I'm going to go cover, is that someone's going to do something. And so coming back to it, why these protests are failing is, if me kind of being a little history buff, looking back at the 1960s and looking back at all these movements and all these acts of, unlawful assembly, whether it was sitting in whites only diners or crowding up buses or even crowding up jail cells, it was done with peace. It was done during the day too, and you had a whole bunch of families that would sit in front of their TV and watch the nightly news, and they'd see, you know, not BLM at the time, but civil rights activists getting arrested in their Sunday suits. So of course, who's the bad guy if you see a man getting beaten in his Sunday suit right after church? And so we look at that and we look at the times now, and there is no leader. We're over 100 days in Portland, and we don't have a leader. Not one across the nation, not even one in the state. We don't have a Martin Luther King. And when I say we, I'm talking about them. I'm unaffiliated. But, there is no leader there. There is no Martin Luther King to follow. There is no talk show host. We're not seeing anyone on Oprah or Ellen or, Daily News or anything. We don't have that person. They need that person to then spread the message. They had a king in the 60s. They don't now. Another reason is a lot of it happens at night. And a lot of protesters, I kind of saw in the chat mentioned, is their intent, as you also mentioned, is to destroy things. Recently Molotov cocktails were thrown. That is not helping, to say the least. You can't say that you're the victim, but then throw Molotov cocktails. And that's a difficult thing as well, is finding that balance, So we see this, and they have no organized leader. They have no organized list of demands. We don't even know what's going on. And there's so many different rallies and protests in different cities across the nation that there is no unity. Something in Portland is totally something different in Kenosha, which is totally something different from LA, with all the same movement and all the same thoughts, but never the same ideas. There's still no list of demands. There's still no realistic things there from what I'm watching. And with public opinion beginning to shift, unless that happens soon, the movement will die out, is kind of my prediction.
Claire, she's talking about protesters, not rioters.
Yeah, I'm talking about protesters, not rioters.
One of the things that we often gets missed in the news media is that rioters and protesters kind of get lumped into the same group, and I think that does a disservice to protesters, and I think it also helps rioters get away with crimes that they need to be prosecuted for. Rioting and looting is against the law. Protesting is constitutionally protected. Those are two very different things.
They are.
And I think the media needs to really separate the two, but unfortunately they don't.
No.
I agree with you. At night things are different, and it is obvious that there is no leadership. There is no clear path forward. The BLM corporation doesn't really even represent the BLM. It's kind of crazy that that's the case, but that is the case. So I find it interesting, though, that sorry, I was looking at something. But I find it interesting how we get to this point where how a series of protests, and that this movement could be started, and you could have all the momentum in the world, and we could get to this place where we're 100 and something days into protests in one city, and there's still no clear leader, no clear path forward. So the question becomes, how do we stop it when there is no list of demands, there is no clear path forward? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, they need someone appointed. I was kind of mentioning this to you, is they need someone that is quote unquote clean. No rape allegations, no groping allegations, no assault charges. Someone probably of a faith background that is going to unite not just the protesters on the BLM side, but make it less hard for anyone on the right. No one wants to join a side that hates them. If you look at the BLM and Antifa, if all they're saying is, screw this, screw that, I hate the far right, I hate the right, I hate this, as anyone on the right, you probably don't want to be a part of that. You're like, oh, they hate me. Oh, they're hyper aggressive to me, like we saw at the park. That's probably not something that you want to join in. So one of the things that the leader would need would be an including and an acceptance and almost a love for everybody, and not make it hard to want to endorse the protest, not make it controversial to want to endorse the protest. Just kind of make it a comfortable space where it's okay. They're doing the right things, and also policing themselves. Where we saw that with some rallies in Oregon where, when the protesters police themselves, things went perfectly. We need to get those people out that are starting stuff, that are throwing the cocktails, because once a cocktail is thrown, that's all everyone sees. That's the news the next day. Yeah. If they police their own groups, then that eliminates that threat, and then that takes out the ill intentions.
And there's one thing I will say about like what happened to you in Delta Park this morning, or this early this afternoon. The guy on stage with the microphone in his hands did yell into the audience to leave her alone. And I think most people listened at that point too. And that was good, because that's like the simplest, easiest, and rightest thing to do. Like we don't attack people. That's not a good idea. Go figure. John Lee 2024 shows up in the chat box after you're talking about a new leader. Why am I not surprised?
Because she's explaining my campaign plan.
Just hire me as your campaign manager. We'll talk
Done.
rates later. Yeah, we'll talk rates later.
Done.
This is what's funny is these two haven't actually got the opportunity to meet.
But we say all exactly the same things.
It's crazy how much you are like literally just you fit right in, like your thought process and the conclusions that you've come to is quite good. And I do think you're right. I think we have to find a way to bridge the difference between the right and the left. And that's it. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We have to find a way to put down these labels, to put down our swords, stop defending the BS that has gotten us to this point, and recognize that we can do better. This is something I talk about a lot, and that is encouraging people to be just a little bit better every single day. And we're going to get somewhere by doing that. If every day we strive to just make a little bit better choices or do a little bit better in certain situations, I think if we get enough people doing that, we can have a drastic effect on the course and the direction of our country. But having a clear path forward does require leadership. So with these, thank you, Chuck. With these protests and not having clear leadership, they're going to continue to struggle until they define clear leadership. One of the things that the civil rights movement had in the 60s, like you brought up, was Martin Luther King. And we had drastically different things happening with Dr. Martin Luther King than we did with, say, up in, the Gary, Indiana area. We had violent riots up in Chicago and Gary, Indiana area. And we had, guys marching and getting attacked by dogs and sprayed with fire hose and not even attacking, just allowing it. And all the footage I've ever seen of that civil rights movement and all the articles I've ever read, I am truly blown away at the level of conviction that those people had in that situation, to literally just allow it until change came. But you're going to need the kind of leadership that can attract that level of commitment to the cause. And I don't see that figure, at least not yet. Because no, it's not. I don't think it's going to be a president, just for the record.
John, no, I don't think.
I don't think it's going to be a president.
It's okay, John.
That's because you have never seen a president like me, friend. God bless America and everyone else.
He so wants to be on camera right now. You want to come sit with me, buddy? So let's talk about the rest of the night. Are you going back out tonight?
Yeah, I'm gonna head back out. Probably after the show ends. I'm gonna get geared up, get ready. A lot of things that I just kind of want to quickly vouch for. That's totally okay. Is when you're in these situations, it doesn't leave you. I took Portland home with me a few times. These things that happen that we choose to expose ourselves to, we're not meant to, to say the least. When I'm out there, when I'm in these situations, the riot or the protest, whatever happens to be that night, doesn't leave when I do. And I'm not just saying it'll come home the next night or anything like that, but when I head home, it's still with me. And I know it's going to be with you. And it's okay. When you go to these things, you get chased and you most likely are going to have to deal with trauma. And you have these scary images. And now, especially after Kenosha, the very real possibility of potentially getting seriously injured or even dying. And that's a realistic thing that I have to think about when I head out to the field, and something that anyone who at any time is going to go protest or do anything else needs to realize. I'm exempt because I'm press, so I have a little bit of an immunity to certain things. But what I'm trying to say is it's okay to get help after. you know, after Portland a few times, I reached out and I just started talking to someone because that's okay. You know, when you're in these situations, whether you're a journalist, a protester, a counter protester, anyone, it's okay to reach out and say, hey, I need help. This came home with me. And to work with that, because I know as someone who does this almost every day, whether it's Portland or wherever I'm at in the state or anywhere else, it's okay, you know, because that stuff doesn't leave you.
You know, you it's that's crazy that you would come up with that and you would want to bring that up, because we talk a lot about mental health in Breathe America. We talk a lot about reaching out to people and making sure they're okay, and everything you just said. And you're right. For those of you guys that don't know, like, yeah, like you go to these things, you see these things for yourself. Like, look, I'm all about seeing the truth for myself, and everybody knows it. That's why I come here. That's why I'm here now. And I do it for all of these people that are watching as well, right? Because I think the truth is important. But Bethany, you're 100% right. These things stay with us. And I think they stay with us in a different way than the people that watch the film that we send or that we show. And it never, it's just the way that it is, you know, and I accept that burden. I know Aaron, he's had a hell of a day. He's never experienced any of these kind of stuff. We've had some deep talks, you know. It will stay with him. I know that. And I can say the same is true for John Lee too. Walking into both these events, like, I think he's walking out with a different perspective because he hasn't seen anything like this yet either. But for you to, you know, bring that out, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's hard. And
Wait, you got to see this comment, because this is how eerie it is talking to you. So this is Chris, and he says, dude, this is like we just met a new character in a movie / book. Like, you literally are exactly like the rest of us. Like, you fit right in. So, like, seriously, Bethany, welcome to the family. I hope that we can continue to collaborate. And you know, as far as tonight goes, are you heading down to the Justice Center? Is that where you're going tonight?
yeah, right after this, I'm gonna re-gear up. You know, take a little second to get my thoughts in order. And again, a lot
Meditate.
of what I do.
Try meditating.
Yeah, I do actually.
Of course you do.
Of course I do. It's important. I suggest it in the morning.
I suggest it every day too. I'm a big fan.
Oh yeah. But you know, I'm just, a lot of what I do is mentally prepping. So just taking a second, getting ready for what I might see or what I might experience, and then I'm gonna get all my gear on and head down to downtown Portland and see what happens.
Yeah, we are just a few blocks from there. So if I see you, I see you. I hope I get the chance to see you again before we leave. That would be awesome. But yeah, let's. I don't know. I've talked to these guys a little bit about it. We are actually being warned not to go by some people that have been down there a lot, and there are people that think that tonight's going to be a really ugly night just because of the way the buildup happened today. And it's quite possible that that's going to happen. But we're 5 blocks away from it, so I'm probably going to go down there either way and at least try to get a look at it. I don't know how involved I'm going to get, though, or how close I'm going to get tonight. I might want to just stay on the outside. But please, Bethany, please be safe down there. I know that you've got a lot of experience, and I know you know what you're doing. But if you need to, just run up to where we're at. You know where I'm at. So it's 5 blocks away. Just get here. Text me, call me. We'll come running. Okay.
No problem. And yeah, I'm gonna be in the heat of it.
Yeah, I know you are. I know you are.
Yeah, it's 8:55 here in Portland, and I'm planning on being out maybe 3 a.m., maybe a little longer. So I'm going to be out there for the rest of the night.
Look, you got that same crazy in your eye I get. I know where you're going to be. I know exactly where you're going to be. Man.
Awesome. Well, yeah, definitely follow me.
it has truly been a pleasure meeting you. I try to keep these shows right about an hour. We're about that hour mark right now. So any final thoughts you'd like to say? You're getting a ton of love in the comments. I don't know if you can see the comments. You can come back and watch it later.
Thank you guys.
Oh yeah, these guys, they love you. So, but yeah, any final words before we call this thing?
Yeah. Awesome. So just kind of gonna plug myself a little bit.
Absolutely.
As I said, I own my own business, Lion's Head Journalism LLC. My website should be going up in about a week or two by the end of this month. I have some people working on that along with my logo. With that, my articles should be going up around the same time, along with my photography. Aside from that, I am a writer and a photographer. You can follow me at Top Quality Dumpster Fire on Twitter. Also, my ad is Piggy Boo Playa. Also, Instagram at Piggy Boo Playa or Bethany. And then if you guys have any support, because it's kind of hard being an indie journalist, my Venmo is Piggy Boo Playa. Hopefully, I'll be able to buy a bulletproof vest for all the things I do. But aside from that, I sadly don't live stream. Just takes a little too much battery. I try to tweet as much as I can, but most of my stuff comes out next day, especially my photography after I'm done editing.
Seriously, if you need me tonight, I'm here. If you need me, you call me. You've got my number. You be safe out there. And you guys, I want you guys to know that in spite of, look, it'd have been really easy to jump on here and say, oh, at the Patriot rally, I wasn't attacked. I didn't have any problems. Everything was great, blah, 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 blah. And then I go over to Peninsula Park and I get surrounded by 20 people that want to threaten me and call me names and everything. It'd been easy to do that, but that's not the truth. The truth is, no, I wasn't attacked at the Patriot rally or at the what do they call it? The Proud Boys rally.
Proud Boy rally.
But she was, and I watched it. She wasn't attacked at Peninsula Park. I was, and she didn't get the chance to watch it, even though because she was on the other side of the park. But that's how close it was, you guys. That's how this works. And yet we're both people who try to stay neutral the best that we can, and we try to share, shine a light on the truth, because that's what it's really about for all of us. So that being said, guys, as always, please remember, be a little bit better tomorrow than you were today. I will be back on later. If we go down, like I said, I think I'm going to go down for a little bit and see what's going on, get a feel for it. And you guys will see me then. But I want to, again, thank you, Bethany, for joining us tonight. And I want to thank everybody for watching. I love you guys. Have an amazing night. And don't forget to be better tomorrow than you were today. Goodbye.